question, I will just read it out 1 minute. I'll read it out and then I will put it back.
Sure.
Okay, I always feel bad about myself because I'm not doing my work properly. What do I do?
I assume that this is from someone who's employed and working. That was the majority, right, Prashansa? More than 50% of the people here are working professionals, right? Yeah. So I feel very bad and depressed. Is that what it says? When I'm not doing my work properly. So let me tell you a secret. I've been a HR guy for 30 years. Okay. So there's a document which I call it a very a fictitious document. It's a work of fiction. It's called job description. Okay. And they send job description JD before you join, and then you apply for a job, and then before you start work or you get an internal job posting, you're given a job description, and then what you actually do is very, very different. Okay. No one has been able to, I'm telling you, and I'm talking about the corporate landscape that I'm aware of around the world, and not been able to define very exactly what it means, what your job actually means. It takes a lot of skill to define it. It's not easy. So you're in exalted company. Many people do not know what they're doing, why they're doing, and all that. I would suggest, first of all, don't feel bad about it, because many people are in that same boat, my dear brother or sister. Many people are in that same boat. I've been in that boat several times, and I've taken an objective look, and I've seen that there is, I've not really pleased people, or I've not done what was expected of me. I did not even know what was expected of me. There's so many jobs that I have done where it took me a long time to understand what is accepted of me. So just a couple of things I want to think. First is, don't feel bad. Second, the good news is that in most of the companies, large or small, there is scope for you to actually deploy your talents and your interests, because there's so many different kinds of jobs that are not defined, and you can give your own unique touch and your own unique flavor to the job using your talents. Now, how do you do that? That is the good news. How do you do that? You have to do some deeper analysis of what is your job, what are the expectations. You might have to talk to a few people. You have to do something which we call in corporate a stakeholder analysis. Who are all the people who affect you and you affect them in your job, and see what are, because it's a matrix structure nowadays. It's not a clean hierarchical structure. So you have to do that stakeholder analysis. There are people in other teams also, other modules, other departments who are still who are dependent on your work. So you have to find out all that analysis, do it in a very scientific way. What are their expectations? And then see how you can meet it in the most creative way. But I'm telling you, congrats to you, because you are definitely in the first step. Feeling bad about not doing your work well is the first step before you actually move towards success. So God bless you and all the best. I'm sure you follow these steps, you'll do very well.
Second question is, sometimes feedback may hurt so much that it might lead to death. What would you say to this?
Oh,
Sometimes feedback may hurt so much that it might lead to death. What would you say to this?
that's so true. I have tears in my eyes, because I know a case where the wrong feedback was given in the most crude way. And I've also walked out of rooms and walked out of companies because feedback was given to me. Maybe I did not take the feedback in the right way. But it is a truth that sometimes the problem with feedback is not the content of the feedback itself, it's the way that it has been given. And I want to tell you that actually feedback tells more about the person who's giving the feedback than about the person who has to receive the feedback. If I give feedback in a very crude way without empathy, it's my fault. I'm a crude guy. Okay. So remember that. Just be able to, be able to uh, kind of just separate the character of the person or the attitude of the person giving the feedback and the actual feedback content itself. It's not very easy. But I want to tell you, if any of you are in that situation, if it is so traumatic, then please take a break, or go to a counselor. Okay. All is definitely not lost. There are some nuggets and some gems in that feedback. But because the person did it in such a crude way that the noise is much louder than the content of the feedback, the attitude of that person, very unempathetic and very crudely given, and not given appropriately, not at the right time, in the right place. That's actually not even feedback, So I would not even call it feedback. You'll have to deal with it in a different way. But if you're suffering from that, if you can't walk away, you have to deal with it, then please go to a counselor immediately. And I can share with you some numbers. If you want to contact me, I'll just, Jobin, if you can put my number on the screen, I can always, or if you want to contact any of the Lighthouse people, there are counselors. This is what is needed at this stage. None of these techniques might work.
We'll move on to the next question. Is there a right time to give up and stop trying, or should you never give up?
Yeah. Sometimes
Sorry,
but yeah, I got it, Prasansha. Yeah, that's a whole thing. I mean, you may be barking up the wrong tree, right? So that's when you need to give up. So maybe I didn't mention it, but that third step, right? When you analyze, you might, when I say that you have to a different starting point, you have to go through the root objective. What are you trying to achieve? Okay. Maybe the resolution does not make sense at all. You have to go through the deeper point of what you want to achieve. And if you're doing it in the wrong way, then yes, you have to give up. But don't give up on the deeper the objective, then there is actually no reason to give up. The more shallow the objective, then maybe you have to give up that approach and you have to try. You have to get the fruit, but if you're barking up the wrong tree, just find the right tree and give up the go get the fruit. But to answer the question, yes, there are times you have to learn how to give up. It's not worth a battle worth fighting. So David, right, fought the right battles in his life. That's the greatness of David. Saul, his predecessor, the king before him, fought the wrong battles. Instead of fighting the enemy, he was fighting internally. Jealousy made him fight the wrong battles. You have to fight the right battles. That's very, very important. You have to see, what are you trying to achieve? Why? Go to the deeper level purposes. And that's where I would say that it should make sense when one of these four buckets: intellectual, physical, social, or spiritual. Okay. And it should be as deep as possible. Ask the question, why? Okay, I want to do this. Why? Because of this. Why? Till you can't go any further, and you'll get the deeper objective of what you're trying to achieve.
After failing numerous times, failure doesn't impact me anymore. Have I become comfortable with failure? I fear mediocrity and lack of effort. I don't fear failure because it means I tried, but at the same time, I can't just settle for middle of the pack. What do I do?
Failure is a stepping stone to success. You've heard this, right? But you can't make it the end objective. I just want to say, if you're comfortable with failure, then please get uncomfortable with failure, because that's not, mediocrity is not an option at all. You've got to live an intentional life. You have to have something with passion, and you have to have a dream, and you have to materialize the dream, and you have to have a dream. That's the fuel in your life. So what did Abdul Kalam say about dreams? Can any of you tell me that?
Dreams are something which doesn't let you sleep, not something which you get while you sleep.
Yes, thank you so much. Who said that? Not able to see it.
My name is Joyce.
Joyce, thank you so much. Well said, Joyce. What Abdul Kalam said in his book Chariots of Fire, is it? Yeah. That dreams are not something that you get when you sleep at night, but dreams are that which do not let you sleep at night. Don't accept mediocrity. Be passionate about achieving something. You are made for a purpose. You are invested with some brilliant talents, every single one of us. And it's a shame to go and bury the talent in the ground. Okay, you've got to be very passionate about what you do. You have a mountain to climb, you have an Everest to reach in your own life, and you can't be apathetic about it. So failure is not the end, it's just a stepping stone to success. And I'm telling you, the encouraging thing is failure is very close. Sometimes it's that last step that you take before you reach success, and to give up at that point is a tragedy. So please don't do that. Okay, don't be comfortable with failure. Just be excited about the failure, that it's just the last step. I've already reached, I've already learned something from it, and learning is the best thing in life.
When I start measuring my achievements against other people's, that's when I start thinking about failure. How do I stop overthinking about?
Yeah, this is not about failure. This question is about comparisons. We can't compare ourselves with others. It's every one of us has been created unique. Okay, and there's something in us which is not there in anyone else. We are unique. And I interviewed a lady who climbed. Actually, she didn't climb. She went to the base camp, and she went a little higher, and then she gave up and came back from Mount Everest. But she was in her 40s. So I think it's a remarkable achievement. But you know what she said? At that point of time, her guide showed her that the way to the top of Mount Everest, there were 18 paths, I believe. Okay. And then I said, wow, I thought there's just one way to climb. She said, no, actually, it is much more than 18 paths, because everyone who climbs carves out a unique way. And she said other things which is really eye-opening for me. She said, sometimes when you're trying to reach the peak of Mount Everest, you're walking and you're climbing, and you see Mount Everest to your right, or you see Mount Everest behind you, but you're still moving in that way. Sometimes you're going down a crevice, and when in order to go up, you go down. So every person's path is unique. Every person's career path is unique. Every person's life path is unique. There are no two paths that are similar. We are being foolish if we compare with others. So whom should you compare with? You should have the Sergey Bubka kind of attitude. Anyone knows, it's my generation person, but Sergey Bubka, and why was he famous? Anyone? Sergey Bubka. You're welcome to Google it also.
Yeah, he's the person who made that different pole vault way of doing it. He did only once.
Yeah, no, he's not the person who changed the method of pole vault, like how Fosbury changed the method of high jump, but he won at a fairly young age. He became the world champion, world record in pole vault, and he didn't give up. He reached the pinnacle of achievement, and he could have rested on his laurels. There was no one close to him. He went on to, I forgot how many times, but some of you can Google and say, he went on to successfully beat his own record several times, which gives the definition in corporate also we use this definition. A successful professional is one who's continuously competing against himself or herself. You should be the best that you can be. You can't compare with others. This is not about failure or feedback. This is about the foolishness of comparing with others.
Okay. Thank you, Uncle. Bluetooth. You fail to reconnect with some people because they took you for granted. You don't want to be treated like that anymore, so you avoid them to save yourself from getting hurt. Yet you need to talk with that person because you have to finish a task that involves teamwork. How to overcome.
It's very tough because I myself in a situation where I'm trying to avoid someone because he hurts me a lot, So I just want to ask Lee Uncle or something, how can we manage? This is about relationships. I don't think I'm the right person to say about it, but it's very tough and we have to do it. But there are times when you can avoid spending unnecessary time with him or taking that person's words very seriously. Lee Uncle, I just request you to, I hope you heard the question, Uncle.
I heard the question. My own approach is rather different because I cannot change the other person. I can't change Prashansan, I can't change Pramod. So if they keep hurting me, there's very little I can do if I'm trying to change you. So I said, let me change myself. Why am I getting hurt? So you are commenting, say, on my color. I said, why am I getting hurt? Because somebody doesn't like my color. So I started more inwards. So that I say that, listen, once like what you mentioned already, once I recognize that I am a unique creation of God, created with a specific purpose to fit into a particular role. Just like you said, we don't compare ourselves with others. I go one step further. I don't worry about what others have to say about me. Okay. So if I'm worried about what others have to say about me, there's a problem I'm having, which I need to deal with. And essentially, it comes from a poor self-esteem. If I'm having poor self-esteem, I'm unable to deal with the comments and the way of other people speak. So my only solution is solve your self-esteem problem. Now for that, one, you can go to a counselor. Two, you can take more radical steps. Recognize that you are a unique person by yourself. I mean, you had that Gallup poll questionnaire, no? You remember that makes kind of points out that you're unique by yourself.
Yeah, Strengths Finder.
Strengths Finder, exactly. So do something like Strengths Finder, and you will find that you are totally different from everyone else. So you have an identity, and your identity is not what somebody else is saying about you, but you have an identity by itself. So once you're able to solve the self-esteem problem, half these problems will vanish.
Okay, so next question is, what are the pros and cons of striving for perfection? Is it possible or desirable to be perfect?
I personally feel that you can't be perfect, but you have to strive to be perfect. So I was told very young by my own father that aim to be 100%, then you have a very good chance of being in the 90s or even 100 for that matter. But if you aim itself as 60, then you'll end up in the failure list. Okay. So you have to aim, you have to strive to be perfect. And I am working for a person nowadays who says that perfection is like a dial. Okay. It's like the dial or that you think that you have tightened it completely. And then once you have tightened it completely, you're still struggling, striving. That's where the perspiration comes. And you can turn it little more and little more. It's like turning the dial of perfection. You have to strive for it. The pros are, the journey itself is exhilarating. And there's something called, in when we study motivation, the intrinsic motivation is much more powerful than the extrinsic. When you're trying to be perfect in something, the joy and the thrill that you get is much more than the external things like money and material benefits and all that you get. So that striving for perfection, the pros are that it's an exhilarating journey and it just consumes you, and that's really good. The cons are that you can get easily, feel defeated, and if you set your sights too high, you can feel like you're a failure and those kind of things. But the cons are also, there's one more I should add, that sometimes there is a word that we use a lot in corporate, it's optimum. There's something that is not worth striving for perfection. This is good enough, you can do that and move on. But if you're striving for perfection, sometimes you're stuck midway in the journey rather than moving forward. You're doing something which is unnecessary. 80% is good enough, and but you need not have 100% in that task, because it's good enough, it meets the criteria for this task. Then you have to move on and go to the more important things. You can't strive for perfection in a less important thing. That I would say is the cons.
Yeah, well, I can add a comment on this. See, what you said is very, very important. In the sense that is perfection required because there's a cost to perfection. So you need to understand that people don't want to pay that cost. Like you said, is not important, it may not be necessary. But I have another concept in this. You need to define perfection, because what is perfection for Pramod may not be perfection for me. So rather than using the term perfection, I prefer to use the term, do everything to the best of your capability. With each person who's got a different capability, you need to have that satisfaction or conviction that you have done it to the best of your ability. And that is the way I would bond you. You don't get into unnecessary depression because you're not as good as the other person.
Okay, moving on. How can we communicate with a girl or a boy who has faced love failure? Where or how do we start?
So this is a question about someone who wants to console someone, is it? Is that how it goes? Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So this is depending on the seriousness of it, I would say if you're not equipped to do that, it's not something that can be taught in just a jiffy like that. I think you can point them for some professional help or counseling. If you do it wrong, it can actually make things worse. So I really don't want to. I have counseled people in that way, but it's not something that can be put in a capsule or a formula like that. I seriously feel if you are in that position, you want to counsel someone who's had a love failure and who's very depressed about it. If you don't have a clue how to go about it, then I would request you not to do that. Try to get them into some professional or counseling help.
Right, thank you. Next question is, when is failure a success?
Is it because of what I said that failure is the last step before success? Because Edison said, right? Every attempt which in the world eyes can be called a failure was actually a success. Because I learned something that how a light bulb cannot work. Okay. So in that sense, from the world's eyes, it was a failure. For me, it was a brilliant success. So I would say my simple definition is, if you're able to learn something valuable from that failure, it is a greater success than success itself, because successful people, they lose a lot of opportunities to learn. Success actually, easy success denies you learning opportunities. Failure gives you learning opportunities, and you have a ready format that you can apply for your next task. So I would say every failure from which you can learn is actually a success. That's one thing, but Uncle or anyone, if you want to add, you can.
What exactly was the question?
When is failure a success?
Oh, that way. When you learn from it, that's all. Like you said, your steps you said, analyze and see what happened. So if I'm learning from it, it's a success. If I'm not learning from it, it's a waste of time.
Right.
And just a
Because we're running short of.
a trick thing. Sometimes success can be a failure if you don't learn from it.
Yeah.
Failure can be a success if you learn from it. So that way, failure is very valuable.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, next question. Does changing paths make you a person who easily gives up?
It depends why you're changing the paths. You should not change because it's a failure. It's just that you're changing the way you do it, but the objective should remain the same. If you give up the objective, that I would say is a tragedy. But if you're just changing a path to reach the same objective in a better way, without compromising on anything, you don't compromise on values, you don't compromise on quality, you don't compromise on any of these things. You're changing the path just to reach that that objective, then changing paths is okay.
Okay, first part is how to encourage yourself to do something when you are weak in that area. That is the first part. Second part, I am suffering a lot because of poor self-belief and a negative attitude.
Sorry, the last part, let me see. Your headphones keep...
I am suffering a lot because of poor self-belief and negative attitude. How can I improve?
Yeah. So weak in that area, we all have our strengths, no? Uncle Lee was referring to a brilliant, it's a whole philosophy now by the Gallup organization. It says now discover your strengths. It's called Strengths Finder. It says it's best to operate from our strengths rather than to keep on mulling over our weaknesses. So it depends. He says weaknesses are permissible. Strengths are things that you have to capitulate on. Now, they also say, and I'm combining two works of bodies of management. They also say that weaknesses in certain things, there are 10 fatal flaws, I believe. And I can send that across later if you require. Things like there's some things where you can't afford to be weak on, like communication, like relationships. Those are some things that you have to work on. Otherwise, if it's not important, then you first examine whether you should be really so bothered about your weakness. If not, you can ignore it and focus on your strengths. Now, the second part is, I just want to reiterate. I firmly believe, there are times when I've been through great depressions in my life, but I know that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. God has just filled my journey with discoveries of some great treasures of my own self, some talents and some strengths that I have that no one else has, that unique combination of strengths. By the way, more than, I forgot how many million people, maybe more than 16 million people have done that Strengths Finder, the 33 strengths. And there are no two people who have the exact combination of strengths. Okay, we are so unique. You have strengths. There's no one who does not have any strengths. There are no two people who have the exact combination of strengths. We are unique. And so the title of the book which Marcus Buckingham wrote is Now Discover Your Strengths. So I will tell you, go on that discovery journey. That's a most exciting journey of discovering your own strengths. God has some hidden treasures which people are not going to discover. You have to discover in your own life, in your own your own strengths. Do that. And you are unique and you're filled with unique talents and strengths.
Okay. Next question. With different career options like UPSC, teaching, and government jobs, I'm unable to identify a career for myself. Please help.
Oh, okay, so sorry, I just lost. With different career options like UPSC, teaching, and government jobs, and I'm able to identify a career for myself. So I'm not going to give you an answer straight away like that. I would just say that choosing a career is quite a process, and those I've been very notorious among my friend circle, especially in HR. Persons ask me, help my brother, help my son, help my friend find a job. I try to avoid those situations because there is a process of learning a career. It's a process of how a pupa turns into a butterfly. There's a process. You have to, and it's discovering your own aptitude. That's very important. Discovering your skills, and your career, by the way. Before you even go discovering the career options in the market, it's a process that only you have to do. Okay. And I can counsel you on the process, but you never should accept someone giving you an answer, say, go do this job, go do this job. You should find out more about the job. You should discover your aptitude. You should discover the career options which are related to your aptitude. And careers rest on three pillars. Only one is education. We think that the entire career rests on education. What you have done will automatically give you certain jobs. There's just one pillar, but it's not all. There's also your skills, and certain skills. Jobs require skills also, not just knowledge. Okay. And then there is your interests. Okay. So, or your aptitude. So all those three pillars are what on which careers, not jobs, careers are identified. And you'll have to explore a lot. Another thing, because I don't have time, I'll just most people whom I at the younger age, when they're searching for career, and this is applicable even at a more even in your 20s and even in your 30s, is create a scrapbook. Gather all the vital information about different career paths, not just the content of that job, what's good in the job. Talk to people, talk to at least 5 people. There was a girl who wanted to become a banker, wanted to join a bank because she wanted to do that bank exam. I told her that, have you been inside a bank? She said no. So I gave her an assignment that she should talk to at least 5 people who are working in a bank and go and visit them. And it was eye-opening for her. You have to go and explore the careers at the ground level. Okay, and see what is the content of the job, what works well, what does not work well, what you like there, what you do not like. Create a scrapbook and explore the different career options. There's no shortcut for this, my friend. You'll have to put in a lot of hard work.
Thank you, Anna. I think we'll move on to the last question because there's lack of time also. And there were 2 questions related to work and one was related to passing exams, which more or less you have answered. So the people who have asked that question, if you guys want detailed answers, you can always text Anna. His number will be put up. Okay, we'll go forward.
I couldn't hear you. Is it about spiritual?
Could you hear me, Anna?
Yeah. Spiritual failure? Is that what it is?
Yes. Can you please elaborate on spiritual?
See, I believe that we are created by a God, an all-knowing God. I've had several debates with my friends in corporate and in universities on evolution versus creation. I can see through the eyes of faith. I can see what is hidden in plain sight, that there's a creator behind everything that we see around us. He also created us. If we do not have, and he wants the entire essence of his of our life is to have a relationship with that creator. And if we don't have a relationship, I feel it is a spiritual failure. And the beautiful thing is that God wants to have a relationship with us. He loves us so much. It gives him joy. I can't imagine that this God who created the farthest space objects in this universe, so vast, so omnipotent, so omnipresent, so omniscient, all knowing, this God wants to have a relationship with us. And if we fail to have that relationship, that, according to me, is a spiritual failure, because it's a choice that you and I make. And it's a daily choice. When we cultivate the relationship, just as we cultivate any relationship with a person whom we love to surprise them, we love to give time to them, we think of them all the time. And that kind of relationship, if we have with our creator, life itself becomes so fulfilling and so different. If we fail to do that, it's a spiritual failure.
Thank you, Anna. I think we'll be summing up the Q&A here.